Because people in her line of work like to be mysterious. Just like whatever it is we're tracing through the woods for in the dark right now. There's a mystery. Ruth Ann looked at me for an explanation. Miss Sadie gave me this bucket and told me to find a young cottonwood tree in the moonlight. But what's the bucket for? She said to just keep my eyes open. What kind of crazy instructions are those? Ruth Ann grumbled. It's kind of adventurous, though, said Letty. It's like that song, Riding the Rails in the Moonlit Night. Unbidden, Letty broke into song. I lit out on a dark and dreary night. Life had dealt me a heavy blow. First my boss gave me the knee, then it up and rained on me. I had no earthly place to go. Yodelady-hee, yodelady-hee, yodelady-hee. For the love of Pete, Letty, if you don't sing something a little more cheerful, Abilene and me are going to throw you on a train and not wave goodbye. Don't worry, it gets better, Letty said reassuringly. My soul and my shoes were all worn through, no money or job in sight. But once I hit the tracks, my burdens at my back, I hopped that train in the pale moonlight. I couldn't help but join in. Yodelady-hee, yodelady-hee, yodelady-hee. We reached a clearing at the creek bed and studied the rocky, parched ground, and I imagined a time when this had been a lively stream that one could wade in for a swim. There's cottonwoods all along here, Ruth Ann said. I touched the rough, heavy bark. They look too old. She said a young cottonwood. Then let's look for some volunteers that have sprouted up more recently. Besides, the moon isn't very bright yet. Come on, I'm getting hungry. She steered us toward a clearing in a grove of cottonwoods and elms, some not much bigger than saplings. Ruth Ann sat down, her back against a rotten tree trunk, and opened a knapsack. I guess if we have to wait for the eye of newt and heart of a toad to present themselves, we might as well get comfortable. What'd you bring? We had agreed that we would each bring some food to share during our outing. Ruth Ann pulled out 3 liverwurst sandwiches. I produced a dusty jar of pickled beets I'd found in Shady's pantry. They wouldn't have been out of the running next to the liverwurst and sandwiches, but then Letty produced a tin with 2 cookies in it. She handed one to me and Ruth Ann. Ginger snap, I said, biting into one, its sweet spiciness giving me a thrill. Where's yours? I already had my fill, and it was my sister Susie's birthday on Tuesday, and as a surprise, we'd agreed to go without eggs for breakfast this week so Mama could exchange them for sugar at the grocery, Letty explained. She made a dozen ginger snaps. Here, have half of mine, I offered. Letty took the half with some reluctance, I thought. Ruth Ann took one bite of her cookie and then another. Your mama sure makes a fine ginger snap. My mama always said she was born to manhandle a cast-iron skillet, but your mama was blessed with the lighter touch of a baker. Ruth Ann ate the last of the cookie. Sing us a song, Letty. Letty beamed. I lit out on a dark and dreary night. We were in no hurry since Letty and Ruth Ann had gotten permission to spend the night with me at Shady's place. I hadn't been sure if they'd been allowed to stay over, what with Shady being Shady, but it seemed their mothers had known Shady their whole lives, and they said it was fine as long as we could stomach his burnt biscuits in the morning. Letty's song lulled us for a time, then all grew still. We talked so much about Ned's letters and who the rattler might be, it seemed like a good time to set our minds on other things. How's your story coming, Abilene? Letty asked. The one Sister Redempta assigned you. I don't know. I don't really have a story to tell. Telling a story ain't hard, Letty said. All you need is a beginning, middle, and end. I answered, wondering if it was that simple. It's so quiet out here, Letty said, changing the subject. I listen for sounds of birds or cicadas or rattlers. Both the rattly spy kind and the slithery snake kind. Do you think maybe there are snakes in those woods? I asked. Snakes? Ruth Ann pondered the notion. Uncle Louver says there's critters of all shapes and sizes out here. He tells quite the tale about goings-ons in the woods. I wasn't really up for hearing it, but judging by the way she stretched her back and put her hands behind her back, I knew she was waiting to be asked. Maybe now's not the best time for that story, Ruth Ann, Letty said. It's already kind of spooky out here. Go on, I said, pretending to stifle a yawn. Let's hear it. Ruth Ann looked sideways at me, I guess gauging if my level of enthusiasm deserved her tale. Well, she began, he was setting some traps, Uncle Louver that is, when he hears a god-awful noise. He thinks it's a raccoon or maybe a possum, so he goes to check it out. By the time he realizes it's no critter, it's too late. Too late, Letty echoed. Ruth Ann leaned forward. He sees a man looking all afraid at something, his face all pale and eyes wide. That man was petrified. Petrified, Letty said. Of what? I asked, my interest on the rise. The ghost. A big black ghost floating and rattling right towards that man. The fellow's backing up. Then Uncle Louver hears one of his traps snap. Ruth Ann clapped her hands together. And things get quiet. What'd he do? I asked. Uncle Louver, I mean. He ran away. Fast as he could. Mama says Uncle Louver was always a bit skittish. She added. Who was it? Who was caught in the trap? That's just it, Ruth Ann said, leaving a significant pause in the night for the forest to fill in. Never was a body found. He brought his brothers back to find it, and there sat the trap, still snapped shut. All that was left was an old boot. That's right, an old beat-up boot, Letty said. Then both girls said together, and the foot was still in it. I wasn't sure if they were fooling, but right then in the darkness of those same woods, that image hung before me like the ghost itself. The foot, what'd they have to do with them? I asked. Ruth Ann continued. Uncle Louver wanted nothing to do with it, in case the ghost came looking for it, so he buried it. Did anyone ever see the ghost again? Oh, some would see a passing shadow now and again, but they could hear it rattling around in the woods. Rattling, I said. What if the ghost and the rattler were one and the same? I suppose it's a thought. Ruth Ann considered the possibility. Uncle Louver says that sometimes, even now, he catches a shadowy glimpse of that figure going hither and yon, especially during a full moon. And as she said it, I realized the moon was full and brilliant above us. Look, I said. What? Did you find the eye of newt and heart of a toad? Ruth Ann asked. Close, I pointed. Glistening in the soft ground around the saplings were hundreds of big fleshy worms. Miss Sadie knew we'd find worms here for her garden. Or witch's brew. Either way, let's put them in the bucket. Then we can get out of these creepy woods. We worked quickly, scooping up handfuls of dirt before the worms could wiggle their way deep into the ground. Then, with two of us at a time sharing the weight of the bucket, we started back to Shady's place, looking hither and yon for any ghostly movement. All three of us crawled into bed, one beside the other, listening to the sound of a harmonica in the distance. It was probably just a folk tune being played, but after Ruth Ann's story, it sounded like a mournful wail. When Letty and Ruth Ann were quiet, I reached for the not-so-shiny Liberty-Head silver dollar in my windowsill collection of mementos. I tilted it slightly to catch the glimmer of moonlight. It no longer surprised me to find connections between the articles in the box and Miss Sadie's stories. Still, some things were a mystery. I thought of our stash of worms outside. The life churning in the bucket was a mystery. How did Miss Sadie know things like where to find worms in the moonlight? What happened to the man who lost his foot in Uncle Louver's trap? Who or what was haunting the woods? Was it the rattler? I put the silver dollar back in its place behind the Wiggle King lure. These many questions swarmed in my head, leaving me restless, uneasy. But it was the look on Letty's face that night in the glowing moonlight that made me wonder the most. The way she had been when Ruth Ann had asked her to sing a song. I thought I knew a thing or two about people. Even had my list of universals, but I wondered, maybe the world wasn't made of universals that could be summed up in neat little packages. Maybe there were just people who were tired and hurt and lonely and kind of in their own way and in their own time. Once again, I felt off balance, as if I was playing tug of war and the person I was tugging against let go. Letty, half asleep, sang, "Once I hit the tracks, my burden at my back. I hopped that train in the pale moonlight. I admired how Ruth Ann knew what I did not. That Letty hadn't had her fill of ginger snaps. With 6 kids in her family, she had more than likely given up her own cookie and traded something for an extra one to share with us. The moonlight shone on the silver dollar, and I thought of Miss Sadie's story, of Jinx and Ned, and Uncle Louver's ghost story, of Letty's story about having had her fill, of Ned's letters and Hattie Mae's news auxiliaries that I read like bedtime stories, and of Gideon's story I was struggling to learn. If there is such a thing as a universal, and I wasn't ready to throw away all of mine out the window, it's that there is power in a story. And if someone pays you such a kindness as to make up a tale so you'll enjoy a ginger snap, you go along with that story and enjoy every last bite. Yodelady-hoo, yodelady-hoo.